Hey, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Fantasy Football Consistency Show. We are back. Week 2 is over. Week 3 is on its way. We're going to tell you everything. Who was consistent, who wasn't, who's going to be consistent. Keep moving forward as we head into week 3. That's James Knight. I'm Bob Lund. We're going to be here in 2 seconds. I lied. It was 9 seconds. But we are back. Week 2 preview. Week 3. Week 2 in review. Week 3 preview. Fantasy football consistency. Got a couple weeks under our belt. James Knight, welcome back. Always great to have you, brother. Always doing some great stuff at Big Guy Fantasy Sports. How you feeling? We got a game tonight, Buffalo, Miami. It's one of those, it's like it could go one of two ways, blowout or super close. And I'm not sure which one it is because the NFL is just that way. How you feeling, man?
I'm happy to be here. You know, it's Thursday night. We got football, so I'm excited about that. At the end of the day, I'm exactly the way you are. Would this come down to the last possession? Maybe. You know, the Bills are insane. Dolphins are a dumpster fire. But at the same time, if it were to be a 7-point game, it wouldn't shock me at all. Again, happy to be here. Happy to have it. Happy to have football on us.
Awesome. All right. Well, let's look back at week 2. We had some big games. We talked about Ron and I on the 1 week wonders just this past Monday, but we're looking backwards and forward at the same time. So we're going to start with the quarterback position as we always do. Of course, we first check out the perfects. First, let me talk about the clutch factor. Clutch factor is 20.3 fantasy points. What does that mean, Bob? That means every quarterback who's earned over 20.3 fantasy points in week 1 or 2, or both, they earn a clutch game. They have 2 clutch games. That means they've been over that twice or in each game. So they're 2 for 2. They're perfect. And the amazing thing is we've had 2 weeks and we're down to only 3 quarterbacks already that are a perfect 2 for 2. Only 3 are left after having 16 last week. That means the other 13 players, 13 quarterbacks did not reach that limit this past week in week 2. That's saying something about the quarterback position. We talked about this a lot last year. I know, James, you weren't on the show when we did the Thursday night, but Ron and I were commenting last year about how poorly the quarterbacks have fallen from a consistency standpoint. I mean, we even mentioned the words tight end as similarities, and that's really, I mean, you know, when you start comparing quarterbacks to tight ends, that's not a compliment, kids. So here we are, week 1, we had 16 quarterbacks earn a clutch game. In week 2, we only have 3 left that are a perfect 2 for 2. Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, who was one of our darlings last year, and Daniel Jones is the third one. That's right. No Josh Allen, no Brock Purdy, no Mahomes, no Herbert, no Goff. Joe Burrow, of course, is hurt now, so he's 0 for 2. He's done probably for the season. Bo Nix, 1 for 2. Just, you know, again, a lot of the guys who had clutch games week 1 did not come back strong for week 2, which means, again, they could have had 19 points. Not that that's disrespect. You know, it's not it's not terrible, but that's how this is all tracked, folks. Now, again, you know, we see what happens and we look at this, and you know, again, we still had week 2. I mean, it looks like we had probably. I'd have to sort it, but I didn't get a chance to. You know, it's not that we didn't have a lot of clutch games earned. It just wasn't earned by people who had a clutch game in week 1 as well. So as we look at this list, James, what are your thoughts on this quarterback scenario already right off the bat, not looking good from a consistency perspective outside of, you know, 2 good ones and Daniel Jones? Is he going to be our consistency model this year? Is he going to be this year's Baker Mayfield? It kind of comes out of nowhere, and you know, seals the deal, or not seals the deal, but is the player that may surprise some folks this year? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I feel the same as you. The quarterback position jumps around so much. We get these guys putting up points, doing a bunch of things. They keep bouncing around. We used to joke around in fantasy and say there are 74 wide receiver twos. Now all of a sudden I feel like there's 25 quarterback ones. All of a sudden, because God forbid Bryce Young breaks some stuff, does some garbage time stuff, does some things. He
Mm-hmm.
shows the top 12, but I'm gonna tell you what. I've been a believer before. I'm a believer now in Indiana Jones. I think Daniel Jones got screwed over in New York. I don't think he ever. Don't get me wrong. They brought in Malik Neighbors right there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
He always had Saquon Barkley, but man, does his list of receiving options look terrible. Absolutely terrible with New York. They never really had stuff. They brought in Kenny Galladay, paid him a ton of money. He was terrible. Darren Waller was terrible there. Everybody that they ever brought in seemed like they were just terrible. And
Mm-hmm.
he kept getting hurt behind a terrible, terrible offensive line.
Right.
But all of a sudden, he's in Indianapolis, team that's known to have a good offensive line. They always piece it together no matter what. Jonathan Taylor is a stud. I mean,
Yeah.
not maybe Saquon Barkley, but he's right in there, and he needed something. They already had Michael Pittman, already had Josh Downs, have Adonai Mitchell, brought in Tyler Warren, that rookie tight end. I'm going to
Mhm.
believe that Daniel Jones is going to keep pacing to the point where everybody right now is kind of talking about him the same way they were like Sam Darnold last year, where it was coming on, and they're like, "Is he a dark horse MVP?" You know what the difference is? In fantasy, Darnold never ran like Daniel Jones does.
Right.
Daniel
Right.
Jones has a 900 rushing yard season on his record.
Right.
Can you imagine that in this offense if he keeps clicking passing? I mean, he's going to be there. Maybe the Cinderella turns into a pumpkin. Maybe it doesn't, but I'm a firm believer in his skills. I think, like I said, he trained with the same quarterbacks coach as Peyton Manning and Eli Manning coming up through Duke and doing things he did. I
Mm-hmm.
think out of New York, he's also got the narrative of Sam Darnold, Geno Smith, these other guys who kind of escaped New York and put up numbers. He's in Indy. Nobody's yelling at him. He feels like a stud, and
Yeah.
I can't argue with that,
Yeah, no. Like you said, sometimes it's just the right coach, the right system. I mean, look again. Baker Mayfield's another perfect example. What happened last year? He
Exactly.
gets out of Cleveland. He gets on a team with a real head coach slash offensive coordinator in Liam Cohen. Um, he's still being fairly productive, but I think whoever took over, and I don't remember his name, so I apologize. I remember him saying in the this summer that OC said, "I'm not messing with anything. Why would I?" And it's a damn good answer because you shouldn't. So we'll just see how that continues. So, yeah, I think right now, of course, a lot of quarterbacks are hurt. Like Jaden Daniels is out, Justin Fields is out, of course, Burrow's out most probably the whole year. So that's not making things very much fun. I had to pick up Aaron Rodgers in one league. I think I wanted to get Daniel Jones, but I didn't think I had to spend $25 of my $100 to get him. And that's what it took. I did 15, and I thought, man, that just seems excessive, but it wasn't even close. So I got Aaron Rodgers. It's got a nice matchup this week against New England, so I'm feeling good about that. But yeah, I might be doing some QB streaming this year to try to keep my team afloat in the Kings Classic leagues for sure, where I lost Burrow and Daniels for this week.
Mm.
So trying to come back from that. All right, let's move on to the running back position. Now, this one last year had a really strong year. It used to be that the wide receivers are always the most consistent between those two running back wide receivers. Last year, running backs kind of made a very strong statement of being much better, much more consistent. This year, it's starting off the same way. The interesting thing is where the clutch factor is sitting. Normally, it's around 10 points. Sometimes it's 10 and a half, sometimes it's 9.5, but usually stays in that area. Right now, after week 2, it's 8.82, which is very low. Now, will that change? Sure, it will. But because of that, there are 20 perfect consistent running backs 2 for 2 after the first 2 weeks. So, yeah, I won't go through the whole list, but most of them are the bigger names. No big surprises, I think, in most of them. When you start scrolling down into the 0 for 2s, there's really nothing major down there except people like RJ Harvey and, of course, in Isaiah Pacheco, of course, now Jay Harris. We talked, well, Marion Hampton. And I think Hampton and Harvey are the two right now that have people who drafted them in a panic. Now, we talked about this all summer, didn't we? And why, the lack of consistency in rookie running backs when they don't have a guaranteed role. And even Ashton Gente, who has a guaranteed role and was one of the top picks in the draft and one of the first rounders in most fantasy drafts, not for me because I didn't pick him, is also struggling. And he is 1 for 2. And he just barely made it, I think, the week that he made it. He sits at 29th in total points. But overall, I think most of the studs are up top. They're at least 1 for 2. Not too many that are not 0 and 2. But of those players, I mean, there are some surprises up there. Javonte Williams, 3rd in total points, perfectly consistent, is probably the biggest one because there was a lot of people who thought Jaden Blue was going to be the guy coming up this summer. He is not. In fact, he's been active in a active scratch, I think, for 2 weeks now. But James, as you look at this this running back position, any surprises in there, good or bad, from you? And as we talked, the rookies not holding their own yet.
Not yet at all, and I keep seeing people preaching that in fantasy, and they're like, it's patience, man. It's patience with these running backs. Well, we're coming up on week 3. You're starting to look at an 0 and 3. You're like, no. There's not a lot of patience. Mm-hmm. I think some people in drafts who got some of these rookies lower are probably feeling good about themselves, but I'm going to hit on a double rookie situation that I think is going to be good and bad on both sides of the equation, and that's in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Dylan Sampson has had back-to-back consistency clutch games, right? Mm-hmm. I think he's getting out of the backfield a lot. Flacco has been passing the ball a lot and doing that. I think that's been a product of what their system has been because they didn't have it. Right. Quinshon Judkins is back. I think if Judkins is back, they're going to pound the ball with him. I think we're going to see a lot of running with him. We're going to start seeing that. I think he even got a consistent game on next to nothing touches and doing stuff, and they know he's the explosive back there. I still think they're going to be a tandem together, Judkins and Sampson catching passes, Judkins being that grinder who can still catch passes. But I think we're going to start seeing Judkins take off a little bit, and in bad game scripts, we're going to see Sampson probably catch a lot of passes and put up some points. Cleveland's defense is legit. If they can get the ground game going, and I think that's what they want to do, same way they did with Chubb for years, I think they see that with Judkins. So I think we're going to see him start picking up the pace starting this week, and kind of take over that role. And there is, I'll caveat that with, there might be some sort of league thing going on there where I've heard they're still talking about there might be a suspension and do that, which makes Jerome Ford relevant and Sampson probably the top back. But as long as Sampson and Judkins are together, I think Judkins eats a lot, and in the right game script, Sampson will too. But we're going to see Sampson's clutch games fall down, see Judkins pop up.
Yeah, or like you said, it's going to be a game script thing. If they're in the game and it's a back and forth kind of thing, then Judkins, but they fall behind early like they did against Baltimore, then it can be more passes. So it's a tough one. It's one of those that I don't want to be a part of. More because I'm a Browns fan and I never like to draft my Browns players because they always disappoint me. But again, PPR, Sampson might be a good catch. All right, let's move on to the wide receiver position. Clutch factor at 10.38. That's what I expect to see for both running backs and wide receivers, so it's right in line. Uh, but again, wide receivers are behind running backs. Only 15 are a perfect 2 for 2 after the first couple weeks. Some surprises. Wayndale Robinson. Ibuka is not a surprise because I felt like it was going to be positive. DeAndre Hopkins 2 for 2. DK Metcalf 2 for 2. Some others in there. Jacoby Myers, one of our consistent favorites, doing his thing. 10th in total points. Roma Dunze, 3rd in total points. Puka Nakua, 1st. Neighbors, 2nd. Of course, no Jamar Chase, though he's not far behind. He's 19th because he had that bad first week. Had a big week coming back this past week. And with Jake Browning, I think we'll continue to see that. The person that might suffer in that scenario is probably going to be T. Higgins, but we'll see. Let's look down at the 0 for 2s. It takes a while to get down there. Probably the biggest surprises are Ladd McConkey, DJ Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., Terry McLaurin, Travis Hunter, Devontae Smith. Those are all 0 for 2s. Oh, A.J. Brown's 0 for 2, 82nd in total points. Not good. It's just been an ugly year, especially for those Eagles receivers. They are not holding their own, more just because Philadelphia's winning in different ways and they've got a good defense, and that's where Barkley comes into play. And, I was surprised. I remember hearing all summer about, they're going to pass the ball more, new OC, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, why? You won on defense and Saquon Barkley. Well, you don't need to throw the ball unless you have to. And they haven't had to yet. So what are your thoughts on the wide receiver cores sitting out there between the bottom feeders we just talked about, who were drafted fairly highly, and the surprises up top and everything in between?
Yeah. I'm going to touch base on kind of what you touched on with Cleveland, because I'm a Denver Broncos fan, huge fan there. As much as I've been a Broncos fan in my entire life, I've never truly believed that Cortland Sutton was a wide receiver 1.
Mm-hmm.
This past week, we watched Troy Franklin kind of take that medal from him a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Franklin now leads the team in yards, receptions, and targets all the way through. He had a great week too. With that said, I'm just like you. It is so hard for me to believe in a Broncos player because I'm a Broncos fan and I see all the stuff. So, I'm like, yeah, of course he was college teammates with Bo Nix. Of course everything's great. And that looks fantastic to me. And it looks there. And like I said, I even bought in on it. Don't get me wrong. My redraft leagues, went out and picked him up where I could. I'd already drafted him on a couple of deep leagues and done stuff. So I feel good about it. But at the same time, I feel so icky about it, where the fact that this week it's probably going to be Marvin Mims or somebody else, or Evan Ingram's going to catch 10 passes. Troy Franklin's going to have 1 for 7. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but the reality is he seems to have a connection with Nix. He's getting all the positive review from the coaching staff and everything else. They said he grew from night and day to last year. And I'll be honest, as much as Cortland Sutton wasn't the dominant one, no one has ever really stepped up and overtaken him in the last 2-3 years in Denver. Even when Jerry Jeudy was there, Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, right. And even he didn't take him over.
Yeah, he couldn't take him over either and had to move on. He's had better times in Cleveland than he did in Denver.
Right.
So Troy Franklin, I really, really like him a lot to continue with consistency. And I think he provides more of an explosive play than Sutton does. And I think Sean Payton really likes that.
Yeah, that's for sure. Again, quarterbacks are certainly the ones that are killing a lot of these top receivers. As we know, Justin Jefferson, he is 2 for 2, but 13th in total points. Now McCarthy's down. We're bringing back from the dead Carson Wentz. Who knows? This could be another one of those. Half the quarterbacks go down and miss 1, 2, or more games. It's going to make for ugly times for wide receivers.
It turns into that craziness where you never know what that backup quarterback. He's going to he might target one guy and just heavy hit him, or he might be crazy. Who knows? Yeah, how it works. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of these guys who haven't, even played that much in years. I don't remember the last time Carson Wentz was on a field. I know he's been around. I just don't remember because
Did
he
you see
changed
that?
so
Did you
much.
see that stat for him today? He's the
No.
first quarterback in NFL history to start for a different team in 6 consecutive seasons.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, I thought that had to have been. I mean, like that. I thought Vinny Testaverde had to have had that back in the day, right? Like Vinny Testaverde was,
You would think.
or Ryan
But
Fitzpatrick.
the thing is, I think Testaverde was on some teams where he didn't probably start. Like he may have started for 8 different teams, but not consecutively. Like
Oh yeah,
like I
good.
remember, I forget the first time he won. He won a Super Bowl ring. He played. I don't remember. I want to say Dallas, but he didn't
He
play
would
all year because he
he
was
would
behind
disappear for
Troy
he would
Aikman.
disappear for 2-3 years, then pop up and start again for the Jets.
Yeah,
It's like
right.
what?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I said he probably started for more teams, but not consecutively. That's the only thing. I we'll
I
have to
would have
look
never
that one
guessed.
up.
I would have never guessed that until I read it about Wentz. I would have never guessed he
Yeah,
had started for 6
especially
different teams.
consecutively. Like I said,
Yeah.
that's hard to do because you have to be on the right team with an injured quarterback every year in a row. Like I said, it's one thing to be a backup quarterback, but to be actually have to start in one game, at least one game, 6 straight years. That
For
tells
6.
me you're bad luck and nobody should ever pick you as your backup.
Yeah, never, ever bring him in. It almost guarantees you that your
Yeah, that's why.
starter is going
Yeah,
out. Yeah.
yeah. If I'm the starter and they just sign Carson Wentz, I'm like,
I immediately demand a trade. I need to be
yes.
traded
Why?
somewhere
Because
else.
Carson Wentz is here and I'm going to get hurt. I know it.
Yeah.
Too funny. All right, let's move on as we wrap up here tonight. The tight end position, again, always one of our favorite dumpster fires, and here we are again. So we've got 9.7 for the clutch factor, which is actually fairly high for tight ends.
Yeah,
But they've been putting up some big points, right? With the Tucker Crafts, the Jawan Johnson, some of these folks have put up some big numbers in the first couple of weeks. That has made this why it's up there. But we've only got 6 perfect tight ends, and of those 6, only one of them was drafted before probably round 5.
There it is. Go ahead and say the names, Bob. Go ahead and say it. Say that there's no Brock Bowers there and George Kittle.
No Brock Bowers,
Yeah.
no George Kittle, no. There is Trey McBride, which is our
Trey
one.
McBride. Yeah, Trey McBride. That's it.
There he is. But the top 3 in total points and perfectly consistent: Tucker Kraft, who just got hurt today in practice.
Yep.
Jawan Johnson, who we thought was a 1-week wonder, and then came back and scored 0.1 points higher than that second week. And Zach Ertz, Tyler Warren, and Harold Fanning Jr., the rookie from Canton, Ohio.
Yes.
Perfect 2 for 2s. Now, Kittle is 1 for 1. That we've got some 1 for 1s. Brock Wright, those kind of Dallas Goedert who missed the game. Second game, Bowers is 1 for 2. But Travis Kelce 1 for 2. Sam Laporta 1 for 2. The 0 for 2s, we've got, not really any big names, I guess, at 0 for 2. Njoku, I guess, is the one that may be the big surprise, but that's because Harold Fanning Jr. is up top.
Stole that, yeah.
Evan Ingram, 0 for 2. Hawkinson, 0 for 2, 43rd in total points. Kate Otten, which I don't know if Mark Andrews, 55th in total points. 2.9 fantasy points in 2 weeks. 0 for 2. It just ugly. All I can say is do what you can with tight ends. Try to, maybe trade for one, find some maybe potential breakouts for the next few weeks. Like, Jake Tonjes, earned a clutch game in the first week, but then came back and did not the second week. Jettavian Sanders had a really nice game this past week with Bryce Young. So with the garbage time, you're probably going to see a lot from this team. He could be a guy because basically it's Tedero McMillan and Sanders getting the ball more often than not in that offense. Of course, Hunter Renfrow is too. So that's what's happening there. It's really going to be a crapshoot. You just got to hope you get somebody that you can kind of sort of rely on and hope. Game scripts. Jake Ferguson did nothing the first week because they were playing Philadelphia, and then the next week they're scoring, 77 points in the game between two teams, the Giants and the Cowboys, and Jake Ferguson goes off. So, Bowers' slight injury is concerning. See if he can get 100% healthy, but it is just an ugly, ugly scene. If Zach Ertz is still out there, folks, go get him. Harold Fanning's there. Go get him. Tyler Warren probably drafted. Go get Luke Musgrave, that's for sure. Because
I love the Zach Ertz thing. I love that too. And one of the names I'm going to throw out there again is Johnnu Smith. We talked about him before.
Right.
They don't have a wide receiver too. And if Johnnu Smith continues to get moved around the formation, I wouldn't be surprised to see him have a couple of weeks in a row too,
Yeah, I was surprised that he didn't make – I think he was really close. I want to say he was
just on the cusp. Yeah, he was. He was
So,
just on the cusp for 2 weeks in a row.
Johnnu Smith, I have him in my two Kings Classic leagues because I felt like you did. He's kind of the wide receiver too because it's either him or Calvin Austin.
Yeah.
So this week against New England, it could be a Hunter Henry versus Johnnu Smith kind of game. So definitely keep an eye actually on both of those guys if they're available and out there. Watch the waiver wire for tight ends. First off, there's only 12 needed, in a typical league. Check our consistency model, check out the tools to see which tight ends are hot or not. We have the home, the historical consistency. So you can look at a guy like, let's say Dallas Goedert or Jake Ferguson or Kelsey, Kincaid, Pitts, some of those guys who have some data to look at and go, oh, he's playing at home against an average defense. Ooh, he usually has good games in this scenario. It might be worthy of, starting him this week or not starting him. I always say that tight ends usually do better against better defenses because a good defense means that quarterback isn't going to have a lot of time to throw the ball because they do have a good defense, especially if they have good cornerbacks as well. So what happens? You throw the ball over the middle a lot. Like that first game that Goddard in week 1 had his clutch game. Well, that was the game against Dallas where, A.J. Brown and them were covered on the outside. They didn't do much, and Goddard had 6, 7 catches for 50 yards. But hey, that's 12 points. And that's what you need.
The tight end becomes that safety blanket, and when they start stacking up catches like that, it's easy to do. Yeah,
right. And then also look at if the other way, if they're playing against a bad team, especially like a bad rushing team, where they can jump off to a big lead, run the ball a lot. Guess what? Tight end doesn't have to get involved. He might have 1 catch for 3 yards or 10 yards. So just kind of has that opposite effect. If you're expecting a shootout, yeah, you might see. But if you're expecting more of a defense-focused game like Green Bay versus Cleveland this week, both of them have 2 of the top defenses in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be a tight end game. I think that's going to be Musgrave, I guess now. And it could be Njoku and Fanning. But, I could see that being more of a smash mouth, middle of the field, short dink dunks. So if you have Njoku and you think, oh, maybe he's not, I would get him in there. Fannin, get him in there.
Green Bay actually struggles against the tight end, like you said. That's one of their weaknesses of what they do, and 100%.
Right. So, all right. Well, James, any other thoughts on the tight end position before we wrap it up?
The only thing I have to say is, I started at one of my big money Dynasty leagues. Came into this offseason before the rookie draft, had Mark Andrews and Pat Freiermuth, and I felt so good at tight end that I drafted Mason Taylor for the Jets.
Oh, okay.
Late. I was like, he might be a starter. He might be worth something. And then, of course, I made a trade with somebody before Johnnu Smith came to Pittsburgh. Ended up with Johnnu Smith. So I ended up with Smith, Fryermuth, Mark Andrews, and Mason Taylor. Needless to say, I've been starting Johnnu Smith. So yeah,
Yeah, right. Yeah,
so
if you
yeah,
only have to start one, but yeah.
there it is.
No,
And
it's rough, and it's funny how people just give up. So I just in a dynasty league, I traded Jared Goff for Ashton Giante.
wow, yeah, yeah. I mean, it
Guy
is
needed a
wild.
quarterback. He had put Giante on the trade bait list after the first week. So first week, yeah, first week, and I have Josh Allen, so I don't need Goff to start every week. And so I said, "Hey, I saw you don't really have any good quarterbacks. I'll trade you Goff for Giante." And we threw in some other garbage stuff, picks and stuff, but nothing. But it was basically them for them. And Ron, Colby, all were like, "Somebody dumped Giante already?" And I go, "Yeah." I go, "I'm not sure he's going to be the
So,
second coming of OJ Simpson
somebody,
or."
I was about to say
But
somebody in your league has to be old enough to remember Trent Richardson, right?
no,
Like I mean that like yeah. And I do. Me and you
yeah,
both do. Yeah, I know who Trent Richardson. I
yeah,
remember when
right.
he was the second coming of the greatest running back ever, and he wasn't terrible his first year, but
Yeah.
somebody's probably looking at that, and then maybe they're a Raiders fan, and they also are old enough to remember Jamarcus Russell.
Yes, yes.
So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, for the height that this kid had, and again, it's a dynasty league. Would I have done it if it was a redraft league? No, I would not have done that trade because I'd been like,
No,
I don't know
no.
if this is his year. But the kid's going to be there a while. They'll improve around him. Geno Smith probably isn't the answer, which we should have known already. But they get a young quarterback maybe in the draft, start building around that, improve their offensive line. This kid could be a breakout next
And
year after. But yeah,
what,
but I mean,
what
I already have Barkley and a bunch of other running backs. So it wasn't like I
no,
needed
that,
him, but it's a dynasty. We'll see.
Bob, just admit facts are facts. You robbed that guy. You robbed that guy.
Well, we'll see. I
It's like
never, I
robbing. It's
never
like
say that.
robbing. But
I
at the
never
same
say
time,
that stuff.
Tom Brady will never in a million years let the Raiders get away with Geno Smith quarterback play the way he's
No,
playing.
no.
I wouldn't even be surprised if he's sitting in that booth screaming, yelling, and he's like, Geno, you're either going to come up or we're going to find something else. So, like you said, they're either going to draft somebody or they're going to trade and get somebody and make somebody or pay somebody an awful lot of money that they like. And when that
Right.
happens, it's wheels up for Janty because the reason he's not doing so much, I mean, nobody is respecting Geno at this point. Nobody.
No,
It's
no.
crazy.
I wouldn't be surprised if he goes out and maybe they try to trade for like a Kirk Cousins or somebody.
That would not shock me at all. I could
Yeah.
absolutely see that.
I mean, again, they're not going to be competitive, so they might want to just play for the draft. I know that there's some decent quarterbacks coming out, as far as I know. I don't know if Arch Manning is going to be that person, but we'll wait and see. But definitely, we'll just kind of have to play it out. All right, so James, to everybody where they can find you this week, all the great stuff you've been doing, and then we'll take it out from there.
Absolutely appreciated everything. And hey, guys, enjoy Thursday Night Football tonight. And like I said, you can find me on Big Guy Fantasy Sports. I do some IDP Plus stuff too as well. And check my articles out every single week for Under the Radar. And I also do a Game of the Week for consistency players. Check that out. And follow me on X at JKeasy, JKEASY. Check me out. And love to talk football with you guys.
Absolutely. All right. Of course, you can find me on Twitter at Bob_Lung, Big Guy Fantasy Sports. We got it all. We'll be doing prop bets and DFS again this weekend. I will be back on that one. So for those of you, Ron, I know I love you, brother, but yeah, stick to DFS and I'll stick to props. We're better that way. I'm not a good DFS person either. But Ron is. I'm much better at prop bets. So we'll be back this week. All right. So for James, I'm Bob Lung. Take care. God bless. We'll see you soon.